It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I will be your host this morning. Glad to have you on board. I see a ton of you folks out there on the web. Thanks very much for joining with us this morning. It's always nice to see faces all over the country. I see some folks out there up in the upper Midwest, all around the Chicago area, Detroit area. A lot of folks down there in California and Southern California. A lot of folks down there in the Florida area, all over the Midwest. I'm glad to have you on board. You know, we seem to have reached a position in our nation where we're all feeling pretty much helpless as we see the activity that's going on around us. And yesterday, or last night, I should say, the primaries were held in Virginia for Eric Cantor. Now, you guys have heard me talk about him before. He's a guy who came on board back in 2000. He is the majority leader in the House, which is one seat away from the Speaker of the House. He is not what they call the majority whip, but it's his job to lead people and get the votes in order. Now, in the last year or two, he's been making a lot of noise about immigration, trying to get it through, even though it's completely and totally 100% against the Republican platform, if you will, or at least their stated goals. And last night, he got trounced. And he got trounced by a guy who spent less than $250,000 against his supposed $5 million war chest, who beat the snot out of him because, and you wait until you hear what the liberal left is doing. Even the right. I mean, you got to, the mainstream media, the Ministry of Propaganda is going nuts. And I got to tell you, Congress is in a panic. This guy, David Bratt, beat the crap out of him so bad last night. I mean, it was like 66% to 44%. That's a and I got to tell you, they were estimating that Bratt was going to get 28% of the vote yesterday afternoon before the election began. We're going to talk about it. The topic of the first the first segment this morning is fire them all. Enough is enough. And when we complete this show today, you're going to understand exactly why I say that. Second segment, Cantor gets his due. He's out. Now it's time to arrest Obama and get the rest of these slugs out of office. No more incumbencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is done, or we are done. We only have two choices here. There's no alternatives. There's nowhere else to go. Our back is to a corner. There's nowhere to go. Our third segment, Iraq falls. No, it's not just Mosul. It is the entire nation state of Iraq that is falling under the hands of al-Qaeda. Listen, they took Mosul airport yesterday, and they took the main city there. And as a result, and you got what you don't realize, folks, I got to tell you, this is a stunning change. First and foremost, they looted the city's central bank of $429 million. That makes ISIS, which is the arm of al-Qaeda that they're called, at this stage in the game, probably the wealthiest terror force, I mean, above and beyond al-Qaeda itself. They've looted the treasury. They've looted their central bank, and they didn't just get cash. They got gold, a lot of it. This is the end result of a series of treasonous actions, not only against the United States of America by our past presidents, which include George W. Bush, and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton before him and George Bush before him and all the way back for the last 100 years. This is the result of an imperialistic approach to foreign policy gone mad. The truth of the matter is, and you're going to, I'm going to hear the accusations that I'm an isolationist and all this nonsense. No, I'm not an isolationist. I'm just not a globalist. And I'm not an imperialist. I don't believe that we have a right or a business in other countries. I think we should be drilling for our own goods right here. I think we should be producing our own energy right here. I think we should be telling the gasoline and oil companies, you know what? You're welcome to be in business, but you're on your own. But no, we can't do that because we don't have a capitalist market anymore. We don't have free markets. We don't have free enterprise. What we have is a corporatocracy, owned, managed, and run by a group of large multinational, transnational corporations who have used and bought and sold Congress for their own personal and nefarious ends. They utilize them to pass the laws. Then they utilize our federal and state and city and local law enforcement officers to enforce those laws upon us. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the definition of fascism. Fascism. People hate that word because the minute you say that word, they think, oh my God, he's talking about Nazis. There's a lot of ways to accomplish fascism, ladies and gentlemen, and that was just the most egregious example in our recent history. But fascism, as a political ideology, is the merger of corporate policy, corporations, and government against you. And that's where we stand today. You can deny it all you want. You can call it anything else you want. It's not socialism. It's not communism. It's fascism. In a communist environment, the government owns the corporations. In this environment, the corporations own the government. What don't you see about that? It's called bribery. It's called lobbying. Our third topic, or our fourth topic, illegal immigration. Folks, this is so out of control. I mean, even Jay Johnson came out yesterday and said, yeah, this is out of control. Folks, we need to lock down the border with U.S. federal troops. We need to keep them bound within a boundary adjacent to the border because the last thing we want here is those troops back on our soil intimidating us and being used as a military police force against the United States of America. But I got to tell you, the border is totally overwhelmed. These guys have to be spread across the border all the way from the Pacific Ocean down to the Gulf of Mexico, locked elbow to elbow, too deep, rifles at the ready, holding people back at gunpoint if necessary, because this is completely out of hand. The truth of the matter is, where we've gone in the last couple of years is so outrageous, so unconscionable, it's beyond comprehension. All right, let's get into our first topic. Yesterday, Obama came out and he praised Australia's gun confiscation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to fire them all. It is time to arrest Barack Obama, not impeach him, arrest him for crimes against humanity and crimes against the United States, for treason. Arrest him, and that's it. Get him out. And if you got to put Joe Biden in there for a temporary slot, that's fine. We'll get rid of him too. He's praising the Australian gun confiscation. And let me tell you something. If you don't know what happened in Australia in 1996, you need to know, and you need to do your homework. They declared gun confiscation, and literally hundreds of thousands, millions of firearms were turned in and destroyed by their federal government. Yesterday, one of his people came out and said Obama is looking to, quote, act administratively and unilaterally on guns. Folks, what part of this don't you get? This is a dictatorship and a coup occurring while we're sitting here talking. While you're watching this, the coup is ongoing. First and foremost, lock down this border and arrest Barack Obama. Lock the border down with troops. Fire every Republican, fire every Democrat, fire every member of Congress, fire every member of the judiciary, fire every member of every agency and seize and lock those agencies down. ban the Federal Reserve, ban lobbying, hold a massive general election. Now we can take a deep breath and turn this nation back onto the pathway that was outlined by our Constitution. We need to color within the lines that was created by our Constitution. Stay within the framework. You learned that in kindergarten, folks. We need to cut $2 trillion a year of legislative burden and regulations. $2 trillion. Do you realize what that burden is on a $16 trillion gross domestic product? And it's created by all of these federal agencies that have no authority, no right, no legalized permission to exist. There's no constitutional basis for them. We require every illegal in the nation to register. Those of you who are unwilling to register, you're out of here. The minute we find you, you're gone. We're not asking questions. We're going to throw you on a plane, and whatever country of origin you came from, you're gone. That's it. End of argument. We're not even going to ask their permission. We're going to land at an airport, we're going to push you out, and we're going to take off again. That's the policy that has to be inherent in the United States of America. Let that hit the papers all over the world, instead of in the papers down in South America, in Guatemala, El Salvador. All of these nations, you know what they're talking about? Their headlines are reading, go to the United States, they won't throw you out. Free amnesty for everybody, free health care, free citizenship, free schools, free hospitalization, free welfare. Ban anyone who is currently in office or has held office from ever holding office again. In other words, we cannot have and we cannot allow the virus and the disease of past politics to re-inject itself into good politics, the new politics. Why? Well, listen, I recognize that there's an enormous risk that some people who might have been very good candidates in the past could never run again. But here's the problem. They've been tainted. They are no longer pure. They have all the wrong motivations, all the wrong reasons, and they will be lured in by this opportunity to get back in the game and utilize the same treasonous skills that they utilized in their past historical experience. And if you say to me, well, that's not true, some of those people were good. Guess what? They weren't good. It's just that history was rewritten to fool you into thinking they were. Let me tell you something. I hear these people all the time out there touting, oh, Reagan, he was the best president we've ever had. Bunk. Bunk. Reagan was a traitor just like George Bush, just like Bill Clinton, just like George Bush Jr., and just like Barack Obama. The only difference was he had an entire cabinet made up of Council on Foreign Relations members. The entire cabinet. There wasn't a single person in the cabinet that wasn't. Did he stick to conservative principles? Yes. But meanwhile, he was selling our nation down the highway. Did he end the Cold War? Yes. But let me tell you something. You know, the conservative movement gives him way too much credit. We have not had a good president in the United States since long before in 1900, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the truth of the matter is, we need people in government who are citizen legislators. Step in for one term and that's it, you're out. That's it, you go back home. 1 year, one term limit. 1 2-year term in the House, 1 6-year term in the Senate, you're done. You cannot run for an alternative on the other side. You can't run in the House and then run in the Senate, then run in the House, then go to try to be president. We can't have that. You know why? Because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. End of argument, end of discussion, that's it. People who sit in jobs like that, they are predators. Don't you get it? Predators. And that's why they're there. Because those are the type of people that a lifelong tenure and a career in government attract. It's like a magnet that attracts metal filings. Don't you understand? It has nothing to do with whether they go in there with the right attitude or the wrong attitude. There is something deep-seated wrong in their psychosis, in their psychoses. The problem is that the people that run for office are inherently flawed. They have the I gotta have power at any cost gene. And there's no way to excise that. So what you have to have is a system that says, I don't really care what kind of genetic makeup you got. You're not here long enough for that gene to turn cancerous, for those cells to go cancerous. That's what the system is supposed to do. End the cancer before it gets, flush the system of the cancer. Our founders told us they had no intention that these people should be careerists. Their intent was citizen legislators. Come in for a short term, do your duty, and then go back home and become the baker, the butcher, the candlestick maker, or whatever it was that you were doing before you stepped in to do your short-term civic duty. That's it. I've heard Congress people say, well, they won't know the ropes. That's exactly right. We don't want them to know the ropes because the ropes that you will teach them are called treason. The ropes of treason. We cannot have it. I got to tell you, Barack Obama yesterday came out with this praising of Australia's gun policy. And I've got to tell you something. The minute that man declares something like that, the minute he says that we're going to confiscate guns, here's what he said. He was speaking to a blogging platform on Tumblr, right? And this is on the 10th, yesterday. He praised Australia's confiscation of firearms. Here's what he said. A couple of decades ago, and he's not even right about that because this was in 1996, Australia had a mass shooting similar to Columbine or Newtown. And Australia just said, well, that's it. We're not doing that again. We're not seeing that again. And basically imposed very severe, tough gun laws. And they haven't had a mass shooting since. Our levels of gun violence are off the charts. There's no advanced developed country that would put up with this. In other words, and this is a National Review, in other words, the President of the United States just praised the government for forcefully removing all semi-automatic weapons, i.e. a remarkable number of the guns in America and the majority of those sold today, from its citizenry. The article, I'm reading directly from the article now. Let me be clear, as Obama likes to say. You simply cannot praise Australia's gun laws without praising the country's mass confiscation program. That is Australia's law. When the left says that we should respond to shootings as Australia did, they don't mean that we should institute background checks on private sales. They mean that we should ban and confiscate guns. No amount of woolly words can change this. Again, one doesn't bring up countries that have confiscated firearms as shining examples unless one wishes to push the conversation towards confiscation. You see, here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is Obama's statement of the trial balloon. This is the same crap he did with the DREAM Act. He started talking about the DREAM Act 2 years before he instituted it. And then suddenly, boom, it was a policy. Well, I'm telling you this right now. First and foremost, we have this thing called property rights here in the United States. And I don't care what anybody else says, and I don't care what the liberals and the progressives say. The minute you announce gun confiscation, you have declared war against the United States of America. The moment that the president, or any president, and I don't care who that president is, announces such a policy, it's on. The Civil War is on. A full-scale, full-blown civil war, blood in the streets civil war. Do you know why? Because a declaration of confiscation is a declaration of war. It is the final step before the 100% lockdown totalitarianism that we have seen being developed and generated over the last 5 decades. You don't understand, perhaps, the import of that statement. The truth of the matter is that statement alone should be justification for the arrest of Barack Insane Obama. Not to mention Benghazi, not to mention the border, not to mention all of this lawlessness that's going on. The IRS, the Fast and Furious, the healthcare debacle. I'm tired of liars. I'm tired of a guy who cannot open his mouth without lying. Sick of it. I'm tired of a guy who trades enemies for another enemy. And 5-1 at that rate. You got to be kidding me. What kind of insanity is this? The truth of the matter is, America has fallen. And Barack Obama is leading the charge. He is the man who has unlocked the gate from the inside. He is the shadowy, dark figure, and this has nothing to do with race. This has everything to do with the color and the tenor of evil. And he is the dark and shadowy, substantial figure that has unlocked the gates from the inside and allowed the enemy to enter. End of discussion. This is a pivotal moment in American history. When a president says, and he floats the trial balloon of Australian gun confiscation, you ought to know what's coming next. Did you ever read the book by Glenn Beck called Overton Window? The Overton Window, and the principle of it is that, in this window, you have the framework for everything that is open for discussion. And anything within that framework is currently accepted by the population. And the goal of these people is to constantly move that window towards totalitarianism. And they float out these crazy ideas that sound insane, but the way in which they couch them is that they slowly move them, and they move. See, the idea doesn't move. The window moves. The window moves to allow and encompass the idea. And it's a graduated incrementalism. That's exactly where we are, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm telling you that this man intends to take your firearms and intends to disarm you with only one purpose behind that: your demise. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how Cantor got his due. He's out. And now it's time for the rest of America to stand up and say, you know what? We're going to arrest Barack Obama because impeachment is no longer an option. The Congress has no backbone, and he needs to go. He is a dire, direct, and immediate threat, exigent to the United States of America, the Republic, the Constitution, you, your family, your children, your parents, your town, your city, your community. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. We've got a minute and a half left. Make sure that you visit our friends over at American Resume Service. These are the folks that have offered to do their $200 resume package for $100 and then donate the whole $100 to America's Voice Now. You can reach them by going to AmericanResumeService.com. You can call them at 417-264-2486, or you can email them at info@AmericanResumeService.com. Make sure you see our friends over at the Battery Station. They can be found on the web at BatteryStation.com. Outstanding organization and one of the great product deliverers for batteries and electronic products. They've got everything that you need for self-reliance, self-sufficiency, bug-out bags, whatever you want to call it, survival gear, all kinds of stuff. Find them on the web at BatteryStation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799. That's 417-257-7799. Last but not least, make sure that you visit our friends at Pizza Hut. Here in West Plains, this Pizza Hut has actually stepped up to the plate and supports this program. And make sure that when you get in there, you let them know that. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have reduced lunch prices. And then on Tuesday evening, kids under 12 eat free. It's Pizza Hut, one of the best pizza places in the world, with an outstanding lunch special and buffet special. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. When we come back, Cantor gets his due. He's out. Now it's time to arrest Obama.